Picture this. You are at a networking event, or, maybe just a casual dinner party.
Right.
You got a drink in your hand, the ice is clinking around, the music is humming in the background.
Yeah, you're feeling good.
Exactly, you're relaxed. And then you meet someone new. They smile warmly, and they ask you the single most common, most inevitable question in the entire world.
Oh, I know it's coming.
They say, "So where are you from?" And in that exact second, your brain completely flatlines.
Just totally shuts down.
It's like someone pulled the power cord straight out of the wall. I mean, you know your hometown perfectly well in your native language, obviously.
Of course.
You can see the streets. You can smell the local bakeries. You know the exact color of the sky in the summer. But the English words,
Gone.
they are just gone. It's like the dance floor is suddenly covered in ice, and you are terrified of slipping.
Yeah, and it's a completely visceral reaction, too. I mean, your palms might actually start sweating.
Oh, for sure.
Your heart rate goes up. And what you are experiencing in that moment, it isn't a failure of intelligence.
Right.
And it's certainly not a failure of your memory. It is the absolute textbook definition of a communication roadblock.
A roadblock.
Yeah, it's caused by a massive, sudden spike in cognitive load.
Okay, let's unpack this, because if you are listening to this right now, you know exactly what that freeze feels like.
Oh, everyone knows it.
It is incredibly frustrating. You study grammar charts for hours, right? You flip through vocabulary flashcards until your eyes literally cross. And then, the moment a real human being stands in front of you, it all evaporates.
It just vanishes.
So why does our brain betray us like this?
Well, let's look at the psychology and, the neuroscience of what happens in that split second.
Okay.
When someone asks you a question in a second language, especially a really broad, open-ended question like, where are you from?
Because it's such a big question.
Exactly. You are suddenly trying to execute two incredibly difficult, completely distinct cognitive tasks at the exact same time.
Two tasks.
Yeah. First, you are scanning your memory banks for the raw materials, the nouns, the adjectives, the verbs.
The building blocks.
Right. And second, you are desperately trying to apply a really complex set of mathematical rules, which is what grammar really is, to arrange those raw materials perfectly before you even open your mouth.
So we're basically trying to build a car engine from scratch while simultaneously driving down the highway at 70 miles an hour.
That is the perfect analogy, yes. And the brain's working memory simply doesn't have the processing power to handle both the architectural design and the heavy construction in real time.
It's just too much all at once.
It is. In linguistic terms, we talk about something called the affective filter.
Affective filter.
Yeah. So when you feel that social pressure, the desire to sound smart, or the fear of making a mistake.
Or worrying that the other person is, judging your accent.
Exactly. Your stress hormones spike. And that anxiety creates a literal block, a filter, that prevents your brain from accessing the language you actually already know perfectly well.
So you have all the bricks, but in the panic, you've completely forgotten how to make them order.
Yes. And that is exactly what we are going to dismantle today.
Which brings us to our core mission for this deep dive.
Yeah.
We are tackling this specific scenario head on.
Head on.
Because by the time we finish this session, you are going to master how to describe your hometown in English.
Absolutely.
But I want to be very clear here. Our goal is not just to help you, survive the conversation.
Right. Surviving implies you are escaping a threat.
Exactly.
Right.
We want you to actually enjoy the interaction. We want to arm you with such rock-solid spoken confidence that the next time someone asks you about your home, you don't freeze.
You lean in.
You lean in. You shine.
And to achieve that, we are going to rely on a highly structured, remarkably simple framework pulled directly from our research and source materials today.
A 5-part framework, right?
Yes. We are breaking this down into 5 distinct areas. Think of them as stepping stones across that icy dance floor we talked about.
I love that visual.
So we will look at the basics, the appearance, the famous features, the people, and finally, the weather.
Okay.
But we aren't going to just hand you a list of words. We are going to examine how native speakers actually string these ideas together without overloading their brains.
Okay, let's test that first stepping stone, the basics.
Let's do it.
Because when someone asks where I'm from, my instinct is just to drop the name of the city and then just stop talking.
Right, just the name.
Like, I'm from Tokyo.
Ah.
Or I'm from Sao Paulo. I'm from New York.
Ah.
But that often leads to a really awkward silence, doesn't it?
It really does. Because a name without context is just a single data point.
Yeah.
If the person you are talking to isn't intimately familiar with your country's geography, giving them just the name of the city doesn't really give them anything to hold on to.
It doesn't invite them into the conversation at all.
Exactly.
So how do we fix that awkward silence right out of the gate?
By immediately layering in the location and the size.
Yeah.
You want to hand the listener a mental map.
A mental map? Okay.
Let's take the New York example from our sources. If you say, I'm from New York City, almost everyone on Earth has a vague concept of that.
Sure, they know the name.
But you make the picture immediate and real by adding the geographical anchor. So you say, it's on the east coast of the United States.
Oh, I see.
And then you provide the scale. It's a massive city. Around 8 million people live there.
Let's contrast that with another example from the material, San Francisco.
Right. For San Francisco, the mental map is quite different. You would say, I'm from San Francisco. It's in California on the West Coast.
Yeah, location.
It's a lot smaller than New York, but it's still a major city with about 800,000 people.
Size.
Notice what's happening there. You aren't just answering a simple question. You are painting a landscape. You are giving the listener a sense of scale and placement on the globe.
But wait, let me push back on this for a second.
Go ahead.
If I'm a learner, right, and my brain is already freezing up, telling me to add more information, like location, scale, population numbers.
Yeah.
That feels like you're just adding more heavy boxes to that car I'm trying to build on the highway. Isn't this going to make the panic so much worse?
That is a brilliant question. And it brings us to one of the most critical pedagogical breakthroughs in language acquisition.
Okay, hit me.
Adding this information does not increase your cognitive load, provided you stop trying to build sentences word by word.
Wait, if not word by word, then how?
You start using what linguists call chunks.
Chunks. Okay, I know we've touched on this concept before on the show, but I want to go really deep here. What exactly is a chunk, and why is it the secret weapon against the language freeze?
Let's use a technology analogy. Imagine you are writing an email and you need to copy a whole paragraph of text.
Okay.
You could highlight the text, go all the way up to the file menu, click Edit, scroll down to copy, move your mouse to the new space, go back to Edit, and click Paste.
Right. It takes time. It takes multiple steps.
And it requires conscious thought.
Or I just hit Ctrl plus C and Control plus V on my keyboard. 2 seconds, done.
Exactly. Chunks are the Control plus C and Control plus V of spoken English.
Oh, that is such a good way to look at it.
Native speakers do not construct sentences word by word. Research actually shows that up to 70% of native daily conversation is made up of prefabricated blocks of language.
Really? 70%?
Yeah. Phrases that are stored in the brain as a single, unbreakable file.
So instead of my brain going into the filing cabinet to find the pronoun it, and then looking for the verb is, and then the preposition on
And then the article the.
Right. And then the noun coast back.
Exactly. Your brain just pulls out one single file labeled it's located on the.
Wow.
You don't think about the grammar of that phrase any more than you think about the individual letters when you type your own name. It's completely automatic.
That is a massive paradigm shift.
Right.
So if I'm learning, I shouldn't be memorizing individual vocabulary words for this. I should be memorizing the whole shortcut.
Precisely. Let's look at the chunks you need for the basics.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first one is your opener, I'm from, followed by the city.
Simple, elegant, undeniable.
Right. The second chunk is for your mental map. It's located.
It's located.
Now let's talk about the word located here, because learners often ask if it sounds too formal or academic.
Yeah, honestly, located sounds like something you'd read in the Wikipedia article.
Yeah.
Not something you'd say at a party holding a plastic cup.
Right.
Why not just say it is in the South?
You absolutely can say it is in the South, but located operates as a beautiful pacing mechanism in spoken English.
A pacing mechanism.
It gives your sentence a natural rhythm. It's located in the South forces you to stress the middle of the sentence, which sounds incredibly natural and fluent.
Oh, here.
It's a framing device. And if your city touches the ocean, you use the chunk. It's located on the coast.
And you know, when a native speaker hears the coast, they don't just think, like, the place where land meets water.
No, they don't.
They feel the ocean breeze, they picture seagulls, they imagine a whole maritime lifestyle. It carries an atmosphere with it.
It really does. And for the size of your city, here is a highly versatile chunk to practice, you say. It's a medium-sized city with about. and then you just drop in the population.
It's a medium-sized city with about.
Exactly. It's a medium-sized city with about 500,000 people.
Let me demonstrate why this chunking strategy completely transforms your fluency.
Please do.
Let's say I'm that nervous learner at the networking event. If I'm translating word by word from my native language, I might generate a sentence that sounds very robotic.
Right.
I might say, I am from city, my city is in east, it is big.
It's grammatically fine. You communicated the facts.
But it doesn't flow at all.
No, it feels disjointed. It's a list of facts rather than a conversation.
But if I use the keyboard shortcuts, the chunks, I instantly upgrade that exact same information to sound effortlessly fluent.
Let's hear it.
I say, I'm from New York. It's a huge city on the East Coast.
Yes. The rhythm of that upgraded sentence is exactly what native speakers are unconsciously listening for. It's a huge city beat on the East Coast.
It flows.
It flows. It shows that you are perfectly comfortable in the language.
I really like thinking about this first phase. The basics, like pouring the foundation of a house.
Oh, that's a great way to look at it.
When you are building a home, you don't start by picking out the throw pillows for the living room sofa.
No, you don't.
That's a tiny, hyper-specific detail. You start by figuring out the square footage, where the property lines are, and what street the house sits on.
Name, location, size.
Exactly. Once you establish that solid concrete foundation, the person listening to you is grounded. Now, they're ready for the details.
Which leads us perfectly from the map to the street view.
Right.
Once we know where your hometown is and how big it is, the natural next question an English speaker will ask is, oh, what's it like there?
They want the visual.
They want to know the visual identity. This is the second area of our framework, appearance.
Right. We want to talk about the buildings, the streets, the nature. What does it actually look like when you walk out your front door? And the sources we are looking at today provide such a stark, brilliant contrast to help us understand how to do this. Let's go back to New York City.
When you want to convey the visual impact of New York, you aren't just talking about buildings. You were talking about verticality.
You were talking about towering skyscrapers.
Yes.
And when we use the word skyscraper in English, it carries so much more weight than just saying a very tall building.
Yeah.
It implies, like, dominance.
Absolute dominance over the skyline.
We are talking about 50, 60, maybe 100 floors of steel, glass, and concrete that literally block the sunlight from hitting the pavement.
It creates a feeling of being very small in a massive man-made canyon.
It really does.
And the physical appearance of the city dictates the energy of the city. You contrast those massive, immovable, modern skyscrapers with the chaotic movement on the ground level.
The streets.
The streets are gridlocked, they're noisy, they're packed with bright yellow taxis and thousands of pedestrians just moving at top speed.
But then, right in the dead center of all that intense gray concrete, you have this massive rectangular explosion of green.
Central Park.
Central Park, it's not just a park, it's an escape hatch for millions of people. It's lakes and ancient trees and massive rocks. New York is a city defined by these extreme visual contrasts.
Now, hold that aggressive vertical image of New York in your mind, and let's travel all the way across the country to San Francisco.
Totally different vibe.
The visual identity could not be more different. Instead of a flat grid of skyscrapers, the geography itself fights back.
Yeah.
The city is built on a peninsula defined by steep, dramatic hills.
The streets don't just gently slope, they drop off like a roller coaster.
They do.
If you park your car there, you have to turn your tires toward the curb so it doesn't literally roll down the mountain.
Exactly. And architecturally, instead of modern glass towers dominating the residential areas, San Francisco is globally recognized for its Victorian homes.
Oh, the painted ladies.
The painted ladies. These are ornate, historic, wooden houses built side by side.
And the colors.
Yes, they are painted in these incredibly vibrant pastel colors. Pinks, purples, mint greens, and butter yellows.
So pretty.
And this entire colorful, hilly landscape is pressed right up against the wild, crashing waves of the Pacific Ocean. It is a completely distinct visual signature.
Okay, I can already hear the learner listening to us right now just hitting a wall.
Uh-oh. Why?
Because they are thinking, this is great for you guys, your native speakers. You can talk about verticality and ornate Victorian architecture. But my English isn't at that level. I live in an old European town, and I don't know how to say neoclassical cobblestone infrastructure with Gothic spires in English.
And this is where we have to confront the single biggest enemy of spoken fluency.
What's that?
Perfectionism.
Let's tear that down. Why is perfectionism the enemy here? Shouldn't learners be striving for advanced vocabulary?
Well, striving to learn is wonderful, but demanding perfection from yourself in a live conversation is paralyzing.
Ah, I see.
Learners frequently fall into the trap of believing that if they cannot describe their hometown with the exact, nuanced, highly academic vocabulary they possess in their native language, they just shouldn't speak at all.
They choose silence over simplicity.
Exactly, because they feel like simple words make them sound childish.
Right, I hear that all the time.
But here is the reality, and this is a major spoken English coaching moment for everyone listening. Fluency is not defined by the obscurity of your vocabulary.
Wow, say that again.
Fluency is not defined by the obscurity of your vocabulary. Fluency is defined by the smoothness of your communication.
That is so important.
You do not need to sound like an architecture professor to describe your city beautifully. Simple, descriptive adjectives, when used confidently, are completely sufficient.
They probably sound better anyway.
They often sound much more natural and authentic in a casual setting.
The simple way to think about it is just focusing on what you see the most when you walk outside. But what if I'm staring at an ancient, intricately paved street in my hometown, and I just can't remember the word cobblestone in the moment? What do I do?
Let's do a role play to demonstrate exactly how to handle this.
Okay, I'm ready.
I want you to play the role of a learner who is trying way too hard to translate a complex image from their native language, and they get stuck. And I will coach you out of it.
Okay, I love this. So you just asked me what the streets in my hometown look like. And in my head, I'm picturing these really old, uneven, historical stone roads that are super narrow.
Right.
So I start translating, and I say, well, the street it is having rocks on the ground, like historical rocks, and it is not big. It is very tight for the cars.
Okay, let's pause the simulation right there.
How was I?
Well, first of all, as the listener, I am completely following you. I understand the concept you are trying to convey.
That's the relief.
But I can see the panic in your eyes because you feel like you are failing to find the perfect word. You are tangled up in direct translation.
Yeah, I was totally stuck.
Let's rewind. I want you to take a breath, drop the idea of finding the perfect historical vocabulary, and just focus on the physical reality.
Okay.
What are the two most basic, undeniable physical traits of that street?
Well, the material and the size, the rocks, and the fact that it's small.
Great. Now use the absolute simplest English words you know for those two concepts and put them in one short sentence. Try saying that again, but this time in a shorter and clearer way.
Okay. The streets are narrow and made of stone.
Boom. The streets are narrow and made of stone. Notice how elegant that is.
Yeah, that felt much better.
It's clean, it's vivid, and it is flawlessly fluent. You painted the exact picture I needed, and you didn't need a dictionary to do it.
Wow. That actually feels so much more empowering. I don't have to carry around a mental thesaurus. Narrow and made of stone does the exact same job as cobblestone, but without the cognitive overload.
It's about prioritizing human connection over linguistic perfection.
Absolutely.
And let's look at another word from our sources that is incredibly useful for this. The word charming.
Oh, I love the word charming. It's such a warm word.
It really is. When a native speaker uses the word charming to describe a town, they aren't just saying it's pretty.
Right.
They're saying it has a delicate, pleasant, almost nostalgic attractiveness to it. A massive concrete parking garage is not charming.
Definitely not.
But a small bakery with flower boxes in the windows and a little wooden sign swinging in the breeze, that is charming.
So if you come from a smaller town or a village, you could say, my hometown is very small, but the center square is incredibly charming.
Yes.
It instantly tells the listener how they should feel about your town.
Precisely. You are giving them the emotional aesthetic.
So we've poured the foundation with the basics, we've built the walls and painted the picture with the appearance.
Moving right along.
Now we move to the third stepping stone in our framework, the famous features.
Ah, the local flavor.
Yes. The landmarks, the food, the things that give your hometown its unique fingerprint on the world.
Because every single hometown, whether it has 10 million people or 10,000 people, has something it takes pride in.
Always.
It might be globally famous, or it might just be famous to the locals.
The sources lean into the globally famous examples, and they are fantastic for seeing how to structure this.
Let's look at New York's famous features.
Okay.
When you talk about New York, you are talking about some of the most recognizable landmarks on the entire planet. The Statue of Liberty.
Iconic.
But notice how you don't just say, we have a big green statue. You attach meaning to it.
Right. The landmark carries cultural weight. The Statue of Liberty represents the historical narrative of the United States.
Freedom.
It symbolizes freedom, yes. And it was the literal beacon of hope for millions of immigrants arriving by boat after a grueling journey across the Atlantic.
Then you have Times Square, which is famous for its sheer sensory overload.
It's a lot.
It's a canyon of enormous, brilliant digital billboards that make midnight look like noon.
Yeah, it never gets dark. And you have the theater district, where the Broadway musicals define the global standard for live performance.
And then, inevitably, the conversation turns to food.
You cannot talk about New York without talking about the food. New Yorkers have an intense, almost combative pride in two things: their pizza and their bagels.
Very true.
The pizza has to be specific. It's a wide, thin crust slice that you literally have to fold in half lengthwise just to be able to eat it while walking down the street.
The famous New York fold.
And the bagels have to have that specific, dense, chewy interior that locals swear is only possible because of the specific mineral content of the New York tap water.
San Francisco counters with its own iconic features. The Golden Gate Bridge is arguably its defining silhouette.
Absolutely.
But here is where you can use a fascinating detail to practice your conversational English. The bridge is painted a very specific color known as international orange.
Which is such a striking visual against the blue water. But why that color? Is it just to look pretty?
No, it is highly functional. The architects chose that bright, almost aggressive reddish orange because San Francisco is famous for a thick, blinding fog that regularly swallows the bay.
Oh, that makes sense.
That specific color allows massive cargo ships to see the towers of the bridge cutting through the fog, which prevents collisions.
See, that is a perfect nugget of information to drop into a conversation.
It really is.
Our bridge is orange, so the ships don't hit it in the fog. It's so memorable. What else does San Francisco have?
Well, there is Alcatraz Island, sitting out in the middle of the freezing waters of the bay.
The prison.
Yes, it used to be an inescapable, maximum security federal prison holding some of America's most dangerous criminals, and now it serves as this fascinating museum.
And the food?
As for their culinary pride, San Francisco is historically renowned for sourdough bread, which actually dates back to the gold rush miners and their incredibly fresh seafood.
Oh, the clam chowder.
Yes, serving hot, creamy clam chowder inside a hollowed-out, crusty loaf of sourdough bread down at Fisherman's Wharf. That is a quintessential San Francisco experience.
Now, here is where this gets critical for you, the learner listening to us.
Pay attention to this part.
When you start talking about the food from your hometown or the famous historical sites, this is where your natural passion ignites.
Of course.
You are proud of your home's cuisine. You want to tell them about the perfect bowl of noodles or the best street tacos or the pastry your grandmother used to buy.
And what's fascinating here is that passion is the engine of a great conversation. It draws the listener right in.
Yeah.
However, this is also a moment where we need to apply some vital spoken English coaching.
Why? What goes wrong when we get passionate?
When you get excited about a topic, your heart rate naturally increases, and you subconsciously try to speak faster.
Oh, guilty.
You try to match the speed of your native language. But if your mouth hasn't built the physical muscle memory for English sounds yet, speaking faster is like trying to sprint on that icy dance floor we mentioned.
You just wipe out.
The words get jumbled, your pronunciation degrades, the listener looks confused, you notice their confusion, and then the panic freeze sets in all over again.
So if I'm excited about my hometown's food, how do I express that passion without tripping over my own tongue?
The foundational rule here is aim for clarity and comfort, not accent perfection.
Clarity over perfection.
You do not need to sound like a Hollywood news anchor to be understood and appreciated. You need to focus on enunciating clearly at a pace that your mouth can actually handle.
But how do I train my mouth to handle English better? Because making English sounds feels physically different than making sounds in Spanish or Mandarin or Arabic.
It is physically different. You are literally using different muscles in your jaw, your tongue, and your lips.
Right.
To build that muscle memory, linguists highly recommend a technique called shadowing.
Let's break down shadowing. How does it work?
Shadowing is essentially physical training for your vocal cords. You take a short, highly useful chunk of language, let's use the phrase, my hometown is famous for. You listen to how a native speaker says it, paying attention to the rhythm and where the stress falls. My hometown is famous for. And then you repeat it out loud.
Not just in your head.
No, not in your head, out loud. You say it 10, 20, 30 times.
Wait, let me play devil's advocate here.
Sure.
If I just sit in my room and repeat the exact same sentence 30 times, aren't I just memorizing a script? Won't that make me sound like a programmed robot when I actually talk to someone?
It's a fair concern, but the reality is the exact opposite. Think about learning to play the guitar.
No.
When you first learn a C chord, your brain has to tell your fingers exactly where to go on the strings. It's slow and awkward.
Very slow.
But you practice that chord transition hundreds of times. Why? So that when you are on stage playing a song, you don't have to think about your fingers at all. You can just focus on the music and the emotion.
So the repetition takes the physical act of speaking off of my brain's to-do list.
Exactly. Shadowing removes the friction. By the time you are at that networking event and you want to talk about your city's food, your mouth already knows exactly how to form the phrase, "My hometown is famous for."
Rolls right out.
It rolls off your tongue effortlessly, which allows your brain to focus entirely on the exciting thing you actually want to talk about.
That makes total sense. You are automating the grammar so you can focus on the passion.
Exactly.
And let's lock in the key vocabulary word for this section. Landmark.
Yes, a landmark is an easily recognized building, monument, or physical feature that helps you identify a location. It has permanence and significance.
Like the Eiffel Tower.
The Eiffel Tower is a massive global landmark, but a landmark doesn't have to be famous worldwide.
Oh, really?
No. If you live in a tiny farming village, an ancient oak tree in the center of town that everyone uses as a meeting point, that is a local landmark.
So you could say, my hometown is very small, but we have a beautiful historic landmark on the hill.
Yes.
It instantly gives the listener a focal point.
Exactly. It anchors the description.
Okay, we have covered an immense amount of ground so far. We have the foundation, which is the basics.
We have the visual scenery, the appearance.
We have the local flavor, the famous features.
And now.
Now we are diving into the fourth stepping stone. And honestly, this might be the heart and soul of the entire deep dive, the people and the culture.
Oh, definitely.
Because you can have the most breathtaking architecture in the world, but the people are what actually give a city its true personality.
The people completely dictate the rhythm and the vibe of the environment.
Let's look at the contrast in our sources, starting with New York. How are New Yorkers described?
Well, New Yorkers are famously described as incredibly direct and fast-paced.
Very fast.
They are operating on a completely different frequency. They walk fast, they talk fast, and they generally do not have the patience for polite, meandering small talk.
Yeah, if you buy a coffee in New York, the transaction is expected to be hyper-efficient.
Which, if you are an outsider from a culture that really values slow, polite introductions, that can feel incredibly intimidating.
It can feel downright rude.
It can, but the cultural nuance here is really fascinating. While they might skip the pleasantries, New Yorkers are secretly very helpful and community-oriented if you engage them correctly.
Oh, for sure.
If you stop a busy New Yorker on the street and ask for directions, they won't ask you about your day, but they will immediately give you the fastest, most efficient subway route to your destination.
It's a culture of intense practicality.
Exactly.
Now, contrast that intense practical energy with San Francisco.
San Francisco operates on a totally different cultural axis. The people are traditionally described as friendly, progressive, and highly open-minded.
Very chill.
Historically, it has been a true melting pot of cultures, making the demographic incredibly diverse.
And the lifestyle is so different, too. It's heavily influenced by the proximity to Silicon Valley.
Yes. You have this intersection of high-level technological innovation happening right alongside a deep cultural reverence for nature and wellness.
Yoga and startups.
Basically, yeah. The culture values outdoor weekend activities, hiking in the redwoods, cycling across the bridge, spending time at the beach. It's an active, yet much more relaxed lifestyle compared to the East Coast grind.
So, as an English learner, how do you talk about the people in your town? This is tricky because talking about people requires you to give a subjective opinion rather than just stating an objective fact like a population number.
Right.
And giving an opinion in a second language can definitely trigger that panic freeze.
It can, because opinions are abstract. They require nuance. This is the perfect moment to introduce a highly specific, stabilizing chunk of language.
Oh, I love a good chunk.
When you want to explain a cultural concept or give a personal opinion without getting lost in the weeds, I highly recommend using this exact phrase. What that means in real life is.
Oh, I really like the sound of that. It acts like an anchor.
It grounds the abstract idea immediately into a concrete example. Let's look at a language upgrade to see how powerful this really is.
Okay, let's hear it.
Let's say a learner wants to describe their hometown culture, and they say a weak, isolated sentence like, "People in my town are traditional. I like this."
It's accurate, but it's kind of a conversation killer. There's nowhere for the listener to go with that. The ball has just been dropped on the floor.
Exactly. It doesn't invite the listener in. But if we upgrade that sentence using our chunk, and we add a because clause to show our reasoning, the fluency just explodes.
Let's hear the upgrade.
Listen to how this flows. People in my town are very traditional. What that means in real life is that every single Sunday, the entire extended family gathers for a huge, loud meal. And I love that because it keeps everyone deeply connected.
That is a masterclass in conversational English right there. It is so rich.
It really works.
You stated the adjective, traditional. You used the chunk to provide a visual example, the huge Sunday meals. And you used because to explain your emotional connection. Keeps everyone connected.
It creates a narrative. You are no longer just answering a question. You are telling a micro-story. And human beings are hardwired to respond to stories.
But let me ask you a tough question.
Yeah.
What if I don't love my hometown? What if the people in my town are notoriously unfriendly, or the town is super boring? A lot of learners feel pressure to only say positive things, but that feels fake. How do you express a negative opinion safely?
That is a very astute point. You do not have to pretend your hometown is a paradise.
Good.
But in casual small talk, you want to frame the negative trait in a way that is observational rather than purely complaining. You can use the word reserved.
Reserved, okay.
The people in my town are quite reserved. What that means in real life is that people keep to themselves and don't really talk to strangers on the street. It can feel a bit quiet sometimes.
Oh, that's smart.
You are being honest, but keeping the tone conversational and polite.
That's a great tool. Let's quickly define two vital vocabulary words from this section that are incredibly useful for describing populations. The first is diverse.
When a native speaker uses the word diverse to describe a city, they mean it is composed of many different types of people, cultures, ethnicities, or ideas.
A mix.
It implies a rich variety. You might say, "My neighborhood is incredibly diverse. I can walk down my street and hear 5 different languages being spoken."
And the second word is lively.
Lively means full of life, energy, and activity. A library is not lively.
I would hope not.
A street market filled with vendors shouting and music playing is lively. Even though it's a small town, the main square is surprisingly lively on a Friday night.
So as you are listening to this, ask yourself, how would you describe the people where you grew up? Are they reserved? Are they loud and lively? Is the community diverse, or is it very uniform and traditional?
We have covered 4 of the 5 stepping stones, which brings us to the final piece of the framework. And honestly, this might be the most powerful conversational tool in the entire English language.
Yes. Here's where it gets really interesting, because we have to talk about the ultimate social lubricant.
The universal bridge between strangers.
The weather.
You truly cannot have an extended interaction in English without someone eventually mentioning the weather.
But why? Why are English speakers so obsessed with talking about rain and clouds? Is it just because we don't know what else to say?
It's actually a fascinating sociological phenomenon. The weather is the great equalizer.
Yeah, great equalizer.
It is a completely neutral, non-threatening, universally shared experience. When you talk about the weather with a stranger, you aren't actually talking about meteorology.
You aren't.
No, you are testing the social waters. You are saying, "I acknowledge you, I want to establish a shared reality with you, and I am offering a safe topic to see if you want to chat."
It's the ultimate icebreaker. So let's look at how our sources describe the climates of our 2 example cities. New York is a city of extremes. It has 4 very distinct, aggressive seasons.
Yes, the summers in New York are notoriously hot, sticky, and heavy, regularly hitting 30 to 35 degrees Celsius.
Just miserable.
The heat gets trapped by the concrete and the skyscrapers, and then the winters are the exact opposite. Brutally cold, often with heavy snowstorms that turn the entire city white, with temperatures dropping well below freezing.
But sandwiched between those extremes, you have these incredibly beautiful, mild spring and autumn seasons where the leaves in Central Park change to brilliant reds and yellows. You really feel the passage of time.
San Francisco, conversely, has a highly unique, stable microclimate. It is generally described as mild all year round.
Mild.
The summers almost never get blazing hot. They usually hover comfortably around 20 to 25 degrees Celsius.
People always make the mistake of packing shorts and t-shirts for San Francisco in July, and they end up freezing.
Exactly. They have a rainy season in the winter, but it almost never snows in the city itself. But their most famous meteorological feature is, of course, the summer fog.
That thick, heavy fog that rolls in from the Pacific Ocean and swallows the Golden Gate Bridge. It's so consistent and such a part of daily life that the locals actually gave it a name,
They call it Carl the Fog.
which is such a brilliant example of local flavor intersecting with weather. Now, when you were talking about the weather with someone, this is the perfect opportunity to deploy a crucial conversational skill.
Active listening.
Active listening. This is so important because listening isn't just turning your ears on, right?
Correct. Passive listening is just silently waiting for your turn to speak. Active listening is an energy exchange.
An energy exchange.
It happens when you pause, repeat, and react to the ideas the other person is sharing. If someone tells you, the summers in my hometown are incredibly hot and humid, an active listener doesn't just nod and say, okay.
No.
An active listener reacts.
You validate what they just said.
Okay.
You might say, oh, wow, humid heat is the worst. Do you have air conditioning everywhere? Or really? How do you cope with that kind of heat?
You are interacting with the information. You are showing them that you are present in the conversation. And for you, the learner listening to this deep dive right now, you can actually practice active listening with us.
Yes. We strongly encourage you to answer back out loud to this audio.
Out loud.
If you are driving alone in your car or doing the dishes in your kitchen or walking your dog,
Yeah.
when we ask a question, don't just think the answer. Speak it out loud into the room.
It trains your brain to respond in real time, removing the hesitation. And to help with that, let's give you some essential, ready-to-use chunks for describing your own weather.
Okay? Chunks for weather.
You can say, we have 4 distinct seasons, or it's mild all year round. Or if you live in a tropical climate, we basically just have a rainy season and a dry season.
Let's lock in 2 very important vocabulary words for climate. The first is mild.
Mild means not too strong, not too extreme. It implies comfort. A mild winter means it didn't get terribly cold. San Francisco has a very mild climate. You rarely need a heavy winter coat.
And the second word, which is so common in English, is humid.
Humid refers to air that contains a high amount of water vapor. It's that specific feeling when the air feels heavy, damp, and sticky on your skin.
Ugh, the worst.
The summers in my city are incredibly hot and humid, which makes you start sweating the second you step outside.
Okay. We have successfully navigated all 5 stepping stones on the dance floor.
We made it across.
We have the basics, the appearance, the famous features, the people, and the weather. Now it's time to put the entire puzzle together. This is the masterclass example.
We are going to look at a complete fictional example from the source text to see how all of these disparate elements weave together to form one seamless, naturally fluent response.
I'm going to read the description of a fictional city called Riverside. I want you to listen closely to how it flows from one point to the next without feeling like a robot reading a list. Ready? My hometown is Riverside. It's a medium-sized city in the northern part of Germany. About 200,000 people live there. The city is located along a beautiful river called the Rhine. The center has a mix of old and new buildings. There are some modern glass buildings, but also traditional half-timbered houses from centuries ago. We're famous for our Christmas market, which attracts visitors from all over Europe every December. People in Riverside are friendly and welcoming. The lifestyle is relaxed compared to big cities. In their free time, people enjoy walking along the river or cycling through the nearby forests. The weather is moderate, with cool winters and warm summers. It rains regularly throughout the year. I love my hometown because it has the perfect balance of history and modern life.
Now, let's analyze exactly why that description is so incredibly effective. And the most important thing to notice is what it does not contain.
Right. There are no highly complex, convoluted textbook grammar structures in there. There are no rare SAT-level vocabulary words.
Exactly. It uses simple, clear, highly organized spoken English. It naturally weaves the 5 pillars together.
Seamless.
It starts with the basics, northern Germany, 200,000 people. It moves smoothly to the appearance, the river, the mix of old and new architecture. It highlights the famous feature, the Christmas market.
And then the people.
It describes the cultural vibe, friendly people, relaxed lifestyle, cycling in the forest, and it ends with the great equalizer, The moderate rainy weather.
And it flawlessly incorporates the exact vocabulary words we learned today in a completely natural context.
Yay!
Located, moderate, and welcoming.
This simple, highly structured approach is the absolute secret to sounding fluent. You do not need a massive vocabulary, you need clear organization and the confidence to use the chunks you know.
Which brings us to the most important phase of this entire deep dive, application. Because we know that knowledge without immediate application fades very, very quickly.
If you don't use it, you lose it.
You will forget this by tomorrow if you don't use it.
We want you to actively use what we've unpacked today. So we are formally challenging you, the listener, to a 7-day speaking challenge.
And I know what you might be thinking. I don't have a native English speaker to practice with. But we want to emphasize that speaking alone is a completely valid, highly effective form of practice.
Highly effective.
You do not need a conversation partner sitting in front of you to build the muscle memory in your mouth. You can and should do this by yourself.
Here is the explicit step-by-step schedule for your next 7 days.
Okay, day 1.
Day 1. We want you to listen to this specific section of our deep dive one more time. But don't take notes. Just listen for the overall meaning. Let the rhythm and the cadence of the English wash over you.
Awesome. Day 2.
Day 2. Replay the session, sit down with a pen, and write down 8 specific, useful chunks that you want to adopt. Phrases like, it's located on the, or what that means in real life is.
Day 3. It is time to shadow. Take the chunks you wrote down and speak them out loud into the air. Do it 10, 20 times. Mimic the pronunciation, mimic the rhythm, build that physical muscle memory in your jaw and tongue.
Day 4. This is the big hurdle. Set a timer on your phone for 2 minutes. Stand up and speak out loud about your own hometown for the full 2 minutes without looking at your notes. Just use the 5 pillars, basics, appearance, features, people, weather to guide your brain.
Day 5. Grab your phone, open the voice memo app, and record yourself giving that exact same description. Then play it back and listen to yourself critically. Notice where you hesitate. Notice where your brain freezes trying to find a word. That hesitation is your brain telling you exactly what you need to practice more.
Day 6. Retell the exact same description out loud, but force yourself to use even simpler English. Cut out any complicated thoughts that tripped you up on Day 5 and focus purely on smooth, unbroken delivery.
And finally, Day 7. Have a mini conversation with yourself in the bathroom mirror or find a friend who is also learning English and practice the exchange. Ask them where they are from and then enthusiastically answer the question yourself.
To officially kick off this challenge for you, we have the ultimate question of the day. We want you to think about your answer to this exact question right now. What is your favorite place in your hometown and why do you love it?
Let's model this so you can hear how it sounds. I'll ask you first. What is your favorite place in San Francisco and why?
My favorite place in San Francisco is definitely Golden Gate Park. And I love it because it allows me to completely escape the noise and the concrete of the city without actually leaving the city. I can rent a bike, ride for miles among these massive ancient trees, and just feel a sense of profound, quiet peace right in the middle of a major urban center.
That is such a vivid picture, I can almost smell the trees.
What about you? What is your favorite spot in New York?
For me, it has to be the pedestrian walkway on the Brooklyn Bridge, specifically right at sunset. I love walking across those wooden planks, hearing the hum of the cars driving underneath me, and just looking back at the entire Manhattan skyline as it lights up in that golden magical hour. It genuinely makes me feel like I am standing in the very center of the world.
So now, we are turning the microphone over to you. We want you to mentally formulate your answer to that question right now, in your head. What is your favorite place and why? And later today, when you have a free moment, we want you to actually write that answer down.
Write it out, and then speak it out. Practice makes permanence.
As we wrap up, let's do a very brief, calming recap of the conversational terrain we have navigated today. When someone smiles and asks you where you are from, you no longer need to panic. You just mentally walk across the 5 stepping stones.
Use the basics to lay the geographical foundation.
Use the appearance to paint the street-level visual picture.
Share the famous features to show your local pride.
Describe the people to convey the true culture.
And use the weather to build a universal bridge.
Keep the language simple. Rely on your pre-built chunks to lower your cognitive load rather than translating word by word. And always remember, the goal of this interaction is human connection, not grammatical perfection.
If you found this session helpful and you want more strategies to break down roadblocks and improve your spoken English confidence, please subscribe and leave a like. It really helps us out, and it ensures you won't miss our next deep dive.
To close our time together today, I want to leave you with one final, slightly deeper thought to ponder as you go about your week. If we connect this entire linguistic exercise to the bigger picture, the specific adjectives and stories you choose to describe your hometown in a second language actually reveal what you value most deeply about your own culture.
Oh,
Do you choose to focus on the ancient history, the flavor of the street food, the warmth of the community? So when you are describing your home in English, you aren't just practicing vocabulary. You are, quite literally, translating your identity for the rest of the world to see.
it's funny. When someone asks you where you're from, your mind doesn't have to go blank anymore. You have the structural blueprint. You have the mental shortcuts. That dance floor isn't covered in ice anymore. You know the exact steps to take. Now you just have to step up to the music and actually enjoy the conversation. We will see you next time.